So big welcome to everybody. This is the recruitment webinar for our Prospect Research Manager role at GFI Europe. Really excited to speak to everybody today and just share with Emily a little bit about the role. You'll pick up a little bit about our culture as well through the questions that we're answering and just hopefully how we are. Hopefully if you have any questions as well, feel free to put them into the form. I'll just link it again in the chat. So my name is Alex and I'm the Managing Director at the Good Food Institute Europe. So I've been working with GFI for 3.5 years now, something like that. So I was one of the early arrivals in the team. I think I was number 3 in the team. We're now a team of very close to 30, which is very exciting indeed. So we're growing very quickly, which is one of the reasons we're looking for a prospect research manager to join the team. So I'll pass over to Emily if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and for your interest in the role. I am Emily Johnson. I am the Senior Philanthropy Manager for GFI Europe. I was rather excitingly the first fundraising team member in GFI Europe 2 years ago when I started. We're now a team of 3, all fundraisers at the moment, but we're really excited to have this prospect research role joining us because it's obviously such a crucial area of fundraising, as you will very much be aware if you're on this call, I'm sure. So this is a newly created role in our development team. GFI Europe's development team works really closely with the US development team though, and they just recently created a prospect research position as well. So across GFI, this is a growing area of our fundraising work. And until now, fundraisers have all sort of done our own research. So we are really looking forward to bringing someone in with that specific expertise. Just by a little bit, to expand a little bit more on the role and what we're looking for, we're not looking for someone to merely just roll out lots of donor bios, although creating donor bios is one of the things you do in the role. But you really won't be on the sidelines at all. We're really looking for someone to be a proper strategic partner to our fundraisers, and really help with that sort of portfolio and pipeline management aspect to the role as well. So hopefully that sounds appealing and exciting to you.
Nice, good stuff. I might also give a little bit of a background to GFI Europe and just a bit about our mission as well. So GFI exists basically to try to accelerate alternative proteins to come to market as soon as possible. Our theory of change is basically that people, when they're in the supermarkets, they're not buying products, they're not buying food because of ethics necessarily, or because of climate impact and things like that. If they were, they'd probably be shopping very differently. What drives consumers in supermarkets and restaurants is taste and price and convenience. Nutrition is also important. There's a longer list as well, but those really are the ones at the top of that list. So alternative proteins currently, there's plant-based meats, so things like the plant-based bacons, things like that you might get plant-based burgers as well. Those exist on the market, but the taste is not yet at parity, and the price also is not the same or less than meat. So we're working to help to overcome those scientific challenges and energize the ecosystem to be solving some of those problems. As well as plant-based meats, there's also cultivated meat. So taking samples of cells, growing them in the same way that you might take a cutting from a plant and grow it in a greenhouse. Very similar approach. You take that sample of cells, you give it the nutrients similar to kind of the soil and the water and the feed, things like that, so that you can grow those cells to a point that you can then harvest the cells in the same way that you would kind of harvest a new plant. So basically animal-free cultivated meat, which is biologically the same. Another pillar of what we do is looking at fermentation technology, so precision fermentation, where you might use yeast to create effectively milk proteins so that you could have milk without the animal. Or there's the more kind of traditional fermentation as well, so things like biomass fermentation in the same way that you get corn now kind of growing out mushrooms, mycelium, things like that. So the reason that we're doing that is looking at a number of different problems really that the world is facing, some of the world's biggest issues right now. So meat production and industrial animal agriculture is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gases, roughly equivalent to all of the transport sector globally. So it's extremely dramatic how significantly better plant-based and particularly cultivated actually also fermentation, how much better they are. It's 90 something% better on things like greenhouse gases, water use, land use, and so on. So this is effectively a very elegant solution to really some of the world's biggest problems. Climate is one, antimicrobial resistance. You don't need antibiotics if you're using plants for your meat. You don't run the risk of creating zoonotic pandemics that you might find like avian flu, things like that, if you're not keeping chickens in the conditions that they currently are kept in. So very exciting potential, and extremely important, as the world, as we know, is changing quickly, with fires and floods and everything else that we are seeing. So hopefully that gives a bit of a background to kind of who we are and what our mission really is. I'll just put again a link to the questions, for the form if you want to submit any questions in the chat there as well. So one question I'll start with, Emily. So what are currently the main challenges for GFI's philanthropy team, and how do you think this role could help address some or all of them?
That's a great question. Sorry, just checking I wasn't on mute there. Yeah, there are a handful. The first thing that came to mind is just really helping with the capacity of our team. So far our team have done everything, as I alluded to. So the existence of this role will free up our fundraisers capacity to focus on their portfolios and do what they do best, rather than doing all of the research work, which is what you do best. We have a number of what we call blue sky prospects who have been identified but need proper qualification, and might benefit from a bit of relationship mapping to help us understand how best to reach them. And then we need to keep people moving through the prospect pipeline. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, we're looking for someone who can use their research and their pipeline management expertise to really make this happen. I would say, just in terms of kind of where we are at the moment, we've so far been quite lucky to be mainly reactive, but ensuring that we take advantage of opportunities that come our way. And we'd like to move to being more proactive. So for example, we need to do a significant amount of identification work and strategizing how to reach new groups of potential donors. So one of the first things that we want to do in 2024 is conduct a philanthropic landscape analysis of Europe to help us identify where the most potential is for us in Europe, and whether that looks like foundations in Germany, for example, or individuals in Switzerland. I'm making this up right now, or maybe it's a total mix of both. And to kind of go back to what Alex was just saying about all of the reasons why plant-based and cultivated meat and fermentation are important, from the climate perspective, biodiversity, global food security, antibiotic resistance, we might have donors coming to us for all of those reasons, and maybe it's the case that a particular strand of that messaging works better in particular countries in Europe. So there's a lot of thinking and strategizing that we need to do, and that will also inform our future hiring for our team. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting, challenging, interesting position to be in, and this role will definitely make a big difference to that.
Amazing, thank you. There's two quite similar questions related to that. So one is, what is the basic profile of your donor? And another one, like, who are your main donor audiences that you are engaged with, major donors, trusts, foundations, etc. So maybe just if you can speak a bit more about like exactly who we'd currently be working with, and maybe who in future we want to be expanding to.
Yeah. So far in Europe, our fundraisers mostly focus on individuals, as opposed to foundations. Although there are a number of foundations in our portfolios. They are often there because they are kind of led by a particular individual. There's sort of a key person there, so it still looks quite a lot like individual fundraising. At the moment, some of the big climate foundations in Europe are looked after by our US Director of Foundations, so those are covered. And at the same time, there's certainly a lot more potential for foundation fundraising in Europe. We're very aware of that. We just haven't really tapped into that market yet. In GFI as a whole, I think 70% of the total giving comes from individuals and about 25% from foundations. That's I think for the 2021 and 2022 statistics anyway. I'm not quite sure what it looks like this year so far. In terms of the typical profile of a donor, that's an interesting question. Because I kind of not sure there is one, as they come to us for lots of different reasons, as I said. We have a lot of donors that come to us via the effective altruism community. So they're very interested in doing very rigorous assessment of which charities make the most global impact. And we are lucky to be recommended by a number of organisations that do a lot of that assessment and have come up with GFI as a top recommended charity in their climate categories, for example. So lots of people come to us via that sort of route. I would say a number of our donors are quite entrepreneurial and or interested in impact investment as well. So something that we're often trying to do is talk to people about how philanthropy can complement their impact investments. And that's quite an interesting one. Yeah, very varied. I'm not sure. That's just a sort of little picture of what some of them look like, I suppose.
Nice, thank you. One kind of similar question as well. How many individual donors do you have in the Europe region, and is there like a membership or a regular donor program as well?
Great question. So this is a good opportunity to explain how well we work and how integrated we are with the global fundraising teams. So GFI as a whole has an annual fund program, and the step up from that, a leadership giving program, which is a bit newer. Those are based in the US, but cover the whole globe. So there are a number of donors from Europe in those programs. We have a pretty good system of referring people sort of from annual fund or leadership giving to the major giving portfolios. At the same time, I'm sure that that's something that this role would be able to massively improve and help with. But in terms of our team in GFI Europe, we at the moment focus on major gift prospects. So in our portfolios at the moment, I think there's about 200 individuals that have been identified as major gift prospects. Yeah.
Amazing. This role would be pretty important for helping to both grow and develop that pool, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah, that's where we stand at the moment. But yeah, we definitely need to increase those numbers. We're confident that we can. We're confident that the people are certainly out there. And yeah, I mean, even just as I said, from the kind of reactive introductions to people and networks and so on that we've had so far, that gives us a glimpse of the potential that's out there. And yeah, having someone who's, you know, an expert in prospect identification and qualification will really, really help us to find even more of those people. And yeah, our team as a whole, we are sort of already aware that we're likely to want to recruit more frontline fundraising capacity in the near future. So it won't be a case of just adding to those existing portfolios until they're overwhelmed. We definitely will want to bring someone else on board. And we're also keen to build this sort of support functions at the same time, such as this role. And we've got a development assistant role coming on board soon too. So yeah, it's an exciting time for growth in all sorts of ways for our team.
Cool, thank you. Someone asked a question very similar to that actually just now, which was, are there plans to expand the European fundraising team as well? They've spotted that this prospect research manager would have kind of a ratio of 3 fundraisers to 1 prospect research manager. Is that right? Like, how do you see the team growing?
So would the prospect research team grow? Or just the team?
Expanding the European fundraising team, I think, in parallel with the prospect research side.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely we anticipate the fundraising team as a whole growing here in Europe. And yeah, as I just said, we would envisage the kind of more like support functions, or I'm not sure if that's the right term, but the non-frontline fundraising roles also growing at the same time in order to support people. As you say, we would need to think carefully about how many fundraisers per prospect researcher, for example. We're always very strategic in thinking about where is the biggest need in our team, what's the most impactful next role to recruit for.
Got it. Thank you. Do you want to take a bit of a break for a minute from talking if I cover some of the like smaller, there's some shorter kind of more general questions that aren't so development focused? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so someone asked, are there any vacancies for graduate positions? It's someone who's eagerly wanting to contribute and looking if there's a chance to work even as a volunteer at first. Currently, we don't have any of those opportunities live, but a great place to subscribe to and just put your details into is the GFI talent database. I've put that link into the chat here, and we'll make sure that is available on the website as well. That talent database means that we can then reach out to you directly when we see new roles coming. So we always do that with any opportunities that appear. So that's a great place to put your details so that we can find you. Another one, is there any scope for cash bonuses, incentive schemes such as commission? As a charity, we just don't run in that particular way. So that's not something which is available with this role, but good question, thank you. Another really interesting question, is it a prerequisite for GFI staff to be plant-based and not consume animal products? Not at all. We have quite a range of people in our team. We're quite a diverse team with quite a diverse range of diets. And effectively, people in our team generally like the taste of meat. So one of the reasons we're doing the things that we're doing is to make meat more sustainable and to make it better. So if you are a vegan, please do apply. You'll find a happy home here. There are definitely vegans amongst our team. There are vegetarians, there are omnivores as well. So we are as inclusive as we possibly can be with that. We recognize that people want to be changing the food system. Individual change is definitely part of that, but it's not a requirement to work at GFI, definitely not. Cool. Question about training. I think, Emily, if you want to also talk about this one, this would be quite a good one. What does training look like for this role?
Yes. So anyone starting in any role at GFI Europe has a 2-week onboarding period that's set aside for you to really get to grips with everything that we do. So understanding the science and everything behind plant-based meat, cultivated meat, and fermentation, getting to know what our different programmatic teams do, and then obviously in this case, understanding the development team and how we work, getting to know all of your colleagues. We definitely set aside that time to get to know people as well, especially working remotely. That's really key to build those relationships. And learning our processes and systems, things like that. So you have those 2 weeks that we guard really to make sure that you're not sort of immediately asked to do any of your sort of what would become your normal work. So that's a really crucial period. And then after that, we would, so you together with your line manager, which would be me in this case, would kind of make a plan for what you need to know next and work collaboratively to ensure that that's what you got. And then there would be, I think there was another question somewhere about systems and software packages. So I can probably cover that one here as well. We say in the job advert that there'll be training given in new software packages. That relates to the software and tools that the GFI Europe team use on a daily basis. So such as Asana for project management, the Google Suite, so email, calendar, Google Drive, and Salesforce, which is our CRM system. We kind of expect candidates for this role to already be comfortable using a CRM system, but acknowledge that it definitely may not be Salesforce, and that's absolutely fine. So Salesforce specific training would be given too. In terms of prospect research specific tools, this is where we're hoping more that you would come to the role with the experience and recommendation of these. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of draw that distinction. And then generally kind of ongoing training and professional development. That professional development is really important to GFI Europe. We all have our professional development goals, and we'll have regular check-ins with our managers and the operations team who support that as well, on that topic. So if there was a particular area that you were interested in developing, then we would be excited to hear what that is and work with you on that. Do you have anything to add on that, Alex?
No, that was really good. Thank you. Super. So there's a couple of questions about the 3 to 5 day team get-togethers, which are put on the job description. So I might just cover those quickly. Someone has asked where are they normally held, and someone has asked if we can just unpack them. Where does it take place? What would the time typically look like? Things like that. So we aim to get together. Basically, GFI Europe is currently 30 people, but growing quickly, and we are spread across 8 countries right now. That means we are very, very remote from each other. It's really important for our team connection that people can get together, learn how to work together, just be together, and just absorb each other's energies a little bit. Particularly for the fundraising team, it's so important to get that insight and to kind of work with everybody across the team, to have a good understanding of everyone's priorities and everyone's projects. So as well as that, being physically together in the same room does bring advantages for things like strategic planning. If we've got kind of big chunky discussions that we want to be talking through, it's often just easier to do that in person. So what we're probably going to do next year, although this is slightly budget dependent, is 2 of those sessions. One of them possibly around March, April time, one of them possibly around kind of September, October time. Where they are is we're very open-minded about that. So we've done it before in the UK, we've done it in Belgium, we've done it in France. That's probably the kind of rough center of gravity for our team, that kind of those 3 countries together. So it's easier logistically to bring people to that kind of area, but that's not to say we always need to do that. We try to minimize carbon as much as we possibly can in our travel. So being on good train routes, again, kind of London, Brussels, Paris, kind of triangle works quite well for that too, for most of our team. So we'll probably dial up the first of those retreats in the spring to do more kind of team connection, but there'll also be some strategy, some departmental co-working as well together with that. And then in the autumn one, we'll probably more dial up the strategy side. And again, of course, we'll still have team connection activities as well, but planning for the subsequent year, it's kind of a good opportunity to be doing that. So that's broadly what it looks like. We try to make sure that the travel for those retreats stays within a working week so that people don't have to work weekends. So that's why we say 3 to 5 days. It's likely it would be the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday working together. The Friday and the Monday would be the travel times to get to the retreat and to get home again afterwards. So that's broadly what it looks like, but the pattern could change a little bit depending on how big the team is and depending on what our focus areas are at the time. Cool. When would you expect an applicant to start in the role, Emily?
I mean, honestly, we're hoping for as soon as possible. But our recruitment process will probably take us up until nearly Christmas, to be honest. So we anticipate making an offer just before Christmas. So hopefully no one has to be on tenterhooks over that period. And obviously, I know that most people are likely to be on either a month or 3-month notice period. So we don't have like a particular time, but we would be keen for someone to start as soon as possible, because we work on an annual fundraising cycle at GFI. So we're coming up to year end at the moment, which is a really busy period. So I'd love for us to, in 2024, be able to kind of make a strong, fast start, on our fundraising goals and that kind of mapping out of where we want to focus next. So no specific date, but as soon as possible.
Nice, absolutely. Related to that, do you have an estimate of the amount which you would like to receive in 2024?
We'll confirm this goal in January after this year end. but our goal is probably like 4 to 5 million in 2024, which would be a step up in our fundraising, which is why we're hiring for new roles.
Absolutely. Super. And what percentage of funds raised goes towards the running costs of GFI?
Yeah, I spotted this question. I was just trying to find information. It is so 80% of what we raise goes towards our core programs. So all of the pragmatic teams, SciTech policy, corporate engagement across the globe, and 7% goes towards fundraising. And then I believe that leaves 13% that goes to like executive and operations and so on. So it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Happy to share with donors.
Nice. Thank you. I'll just again cover a couple of little ones and just give you a bit of a break for a few minutes. So someone asked, in which European countries are you present? Yeah, good question, and it's slightly fuzzy answer. So in terms of where we physically have staff, currently that is the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, Austria, France, UK, Spain, and Italy. I think that's right, that should be 8. We are not restricted to those countries in any way. So if you live in a country which is not one of those 8, what we would almost certainly do is register our Belgian entity as a foreign employer in that country so that we can run a payroll in whatever country you're in. So don't feel restricted by that. We're very keen to be very open-minded about where people are based. We have the lightest possible footprint in terms of how we can run payrolls in those countries, which is really easy for us on the compliance side, and it keeps our costs super low, and it means that we can have employees in those countries, which is just super for us. In terms of where we actually work, in terms of like where we're present, it's a lot broader than that. So we have policy team members who might be based in Brussels, but also work at kind of national level at different things. So potentially traveling for conferences in Lithuania or Poland or other parts of the continent where we don't necessarily have a footprint physically there all the time. So we can be pretty flexible with things like that. Also, similarly, someone said, does the role allow you to work in different countries across the year, or do you need to be based in and work out of one country? Yeah, great question again. From our point of view, we're really open-minded and we'll do what we can to support people to be as flexible as they want to be with things like that. From your personal side, you would need to consider things like your own tax residency. So we would contract you to the country where you live, the country where you are tax resident, and that will enable us to pay your payroll. But in order to remain tax resident, you'll need to ask yourself some questions about how long you would need to be in that country each year in order to make that happen. So from our perspective, we'll be as flexible as we can within the realms of compliance. And from your perspective, you'll just need to consider for your own taxes how that would work. So hopefully that's clear enough, but flexible enough too. That's the plan. Cool. Someone's asked about corporate engagements. Could you tell us a bit more about corporate engagement in GFI? Are there any particular corporate sectors you're looking to expand into? Are you happy with that, Emily?
Yeah, I wasn't totally sure if you're asking about our programmatic corporate engagement work with companies and investors in the plant-based and cultivated meat sector, or about corporate fundraising, but I'm going to assume it's corporate fundraising because of this context. As a general rule, we do not accept donations from companies that meaningfully work on research, development, manufacture, or sale of either conventional animal proteins or alternative proteins. The exception to this is if the gift goes specifically towards open access research or events that are open to the public, because obviously then there's kind of no suggestion that a particular company is being advantaged by virtue of being a donor. Corporate fundraising isn't really an area that we're looking to prioritize at the moment. We're definitely more interested in individuals and foundations.
Lovely, thank you. Does the Prospect Research Manager not only support GFI's funding efforts, but also collaborate with other team members to achieve long-term goals?
That's a good question. Hopefully I'm going to answer it as in terms of what you're looking for. So the role is based in GFI Europe's development team. So ours is the team that you're predominantly working with and supporting. you're not doing like research on policymakers, for example, or companies that might invest in the space. But that said, I feel like at GFI we're always working really collaboratively with other teams, and a couple of ways that your work might interact with other teams in GFI Europe are, for example, sometimes a potential donor will be referred by someone in a programmatic team. So our policy team sometimes work with foundations or other NGOs that might lead to a referral that way, or our corporate engagement team might meet someone that's a potential donor as well, obviously always being careful of that distinction of who we can and can't accept donations from. So yeah, you could end up working with them a little bit in that way, or as fundraisers, sometimes we want to bring in someone from the programmatic team to be in a meeting with us, because we know that the donor would really love to hear more of an insight into our policy work or our SciTech work or something like that. And potentially as our researcher, you might be the one who realizes that that's a really good idea and that's the way in. So yeah, we do work really collaboratively for sure. But the role is based in the development team.
Nice. I think you've really hit an interesting point there as well, that this role has quite a lot of autonomy and like responsibility to pick up on some of those strategic ideas and then bring them to the table. There's no end to the opportunity for someone to really kind of take that direction in whichever way they're seeing the patterns falling. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are definitely looking for someone who has that kind of strategic insight and kind of initiative to bring that to the table, as you say. And I think that also just speaks to the culture at GFI Europe and GFI as a whole, which is just very empowering. If you're hired to do this job, we will trust you to do this job. There's not, micromanagement or anything like that. So I think that's a really nice culture to be in. And yeah, I know sometimes prospect researchers can maybe feel like they're sidelined a little bit, or maybe not listened to by fundraisers. That's not what we want. We really want to listen to. We want your insights and ideas and thoughts on where we should grow, where we should focus based on your experience and expertise.
Super. Okay, do you have a planned giving strategy?
We don't really at the moment, to be honest. It's something that is kind of on a long list for the development team, as in the global development team. Have a list of things that we would like to be able to get to, and that is one of them. We have I think a sort of smallish number of donors who have made legacy pledges, so like we have the capacity to do that, like to accept those and record those intentions and so on, and obviously we would provide the best donor stewardship that we can to those people, as we would for any donors, but we don't have a kind of strategy for actively soliciting legacy gifts or other planned gifts at the moment.
Thank you. And where does crypto fit into your operations?
Oh, good question. We can accept gifts of cryptocurrencies. I have never had to do it personally, so there's a limited amount that I can say on this. But I believe we can accept crypto gifts.
Yes, that's my understanding too, and I believe that when we do receive it, because of the volatility, we kind of catch them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. The job spec mentions having an aptitude to quickly understand the philanthropic sector cross-culturally. What do you look for in a candidate with this in mind, and how would a candidate demonstrate that aptitude?
Yeah, good question. So I would say an ideal candidate for this role would have experience of prospect research from multiple European countries, because GFI Europe fundraisers from countries across Europe. And as I've said, we're looking to grow this and understand the best ways to do so. However, we never ask for more in our job descriptions or job adverts than is absolutely essential. And we completely recognise that many totally brilliant prospect researchers will have focused mainly on one country, just due to whatever your previous role is. And we definitely want you to apply too, because you might absolutely excel in other areas, and you may very well be able to perfectly well develop an understanding of the philanthropic culture across Europe. You've just never had to in your previous roles. So please apply, even if your experience is just in one country. In terms of how to demonstrate that aptitude, I don't want to write the answer to a potential interview question for you, but we will be digging into this interview. But what I would encourage you to do is consider yourself. What are the skills that would make you naturally suited to being able to understand the philanthropic sector in a particular country or multiple countries, both in terms of the structure of philanthropy there, so giving mechanisms, tax incentives, that sort of thing, and culture, so donor behaviours and motivations. So yeah, what skills would you need in order to gain an understanding of a country's philanthropic sector? Yeah, is the question that I'd be asking yourself, and how would you demonstrate that? So if you think that you have got the aptitude to understand it, just not the direct experience, then tell us why you think so. We're open to hearing it. We want to give you the chance to tell us, and that's why we didn't insist on making existing experience a sort of prerequisite of the job. And just to say, one of the reasons that we don't often ask for like specific experience unless it's absolutely crucial, and we certainly don't ask for, you know, X number of years of experience, is because it's from a diversity perspective, because people that have been kind of historically disadvantaged just might not have that experience, but could absolutely have the skills, the aptitude for the role. So yeah, that's a key reason why we don't do that. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that general topic, Alex.
No, thank you. That was really clear. There was another question that was related. I think you probably have answered it, but if there's anything more you want to add. The question was, how many and what kind of work examples are you looking for to best demonstrate experience? You broadly covered it, but anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I have kind of covered that. There's not like a specific number of examples or whatever. Yeah, obviously it's always good in an interview, so when you get to that stage, to give specific examples of how you can demonstrate things. But as I said, we're really looking for the skills. Yeah, the skills, not necessarily that specific experience. But yeah, have a look at the job description again, because that does say like the things that we are looking for, and yeah, potentially in a couple of cases it's more specific experience, but as I say, we try to minimize that and only ask for what we really need. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Yes, our process will absolutely be looking at skills and whether someone can demonstrate the ability to do the job. So that's why the language has that kind of an aptitude kind of angle to it. Nice. At GFI Europe, is there a policy in place to categorize contributions based on historical interest in supporting important topics like plant-based, cultivated in some specific countries, or is the approach more to invest the same level of effort in all countries?
So there's limited philanthropy already being directed specifically towards plant-based and cultivated meat research and so on outside of GFI, because GFI is a bit of a niche in the market. yeah, we are really the NGO, or maybe one of just a very, very small number who are doing this. So if they're not giving to us to support plant-based and cultivated meat, they're probably not giving philanthropically to anyone in that area. However, we would surely be interested in people that are that have donated to the cause areas that we've mentioned. So climate, global health, animal welfare, food security, and again, as I think I mentioned, we're interested in which of these cause areas resonates the most in different countries. And the philanthropic landscape analysis project that we want to do will help us to analyse which countries have the most philanthropic potential for us, and what philanthropy looks like there. So that will inform us where to focus. And I think it's worth saying that is kind of in line with GFI's approach to everything. We always ask, where can we make the biggest impact in what we do? So yeah, so our approach should be in line with that, not just kind of blanket paying equal attention to any country. But I also thought it was actually important to say that again, as we've alluded to, diversity, equity, inclusion, really important to us across the organisation, and I would like that to be reflected in our donor pool as well. So I would always like to bear that in mind.
Super, thank you. Okay, couple of experience-y questions. Are you looking for a person with solid experience in food science related to plant-based cultivated meats for this role? Or, as well as having an experience in food science, does the applicant need to be knowledgeable about how to raise funds, particularly to support GFI's fundraising efforts? So it's that kind of balance of, I suppose, content knowledge or the skills and the prospect knowledge, prospect research knowledge.
It's definitely the skills and prospect research knowledge is what we're looking for. You absolutely don't need to have experience in food science or alternative proteins or anything like that. You will learn a lot about it by virtue of being in this role, which is one of the cool things about working for GFI. I was learning about this really exciting new area. But yeah, you can learn all of that. Yeah, we're looking for someone with the prospect research skills.
It's definitely a perk working for GFI, is like having access to that sciencey knowledge and the training and learning that comes with that. Similarly, also just working as part of a global team. So you'd be working as part of GFI Europe, but we are one of several GFIs around the world. So you'd have pretty direct access to a lot of people in Asia Pacific, in Israel, in the US, Brazil, loads of kind of opportunities for cross-cultural learning and understanding, and just finding opportunities where you wouldn't actually necessarily find them in a purely single country or even a regional role. So it makes it super global, makes it very cool. Nice. Okay, really good question here. Let's fast forward to a year from today. You've made this hire, a whole year has gone by. What does an excellent hire look like for the GFI Europe team? So in other words, what does success look like? What needs to happen in a year for you to look back and say, wow, we are so happy we picked this person for the role? That's such a nice question.
That is a lovely question. Oh my goodness. Well, as I said, we have quite an ambitious fundraising target for next year, which would be a step up for us. So certainly one element of success would be, have we met that goal? Have we seen that step up in fundraising? And this role will be really crucial to that. I know that we won't achieve the goal without someone brilliant in this role. So I think we would have identified a number of new prospects. I don't want to put a specific number on that right now. We'd figure out those metrics together. We would have a bigger pool of potential donors, and we would also, I think, see people moving through that prospect pipeline more quickly. So people wouldn't be kind of lingering in that blue sky prospect phase for too long. You would probably have been working really closely with our fundraisers to, at the pipeline meetings, saying, this person has been in this stage for a while. what's the next step with them. You'd be bringing your own suggestions for that based on your expertise and research. And yes, we would see that nice movement going on, and that should help us to unlock the fundraising goal. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. There's probably more that I could say to answer that question because it's such a good one, but in like a short period of time, I think that's
It
those
definitely
points.
puts a big smile on my face. So yeah, very cool. Do you run any public facing events to inform and attract potential donors?
Good question. So as the development team, we have run a few virtual events. We don't do a lot of events in the fundraising team, but it's something that we're interested in. So a big priority for us actually over the next couple of years, and I'm sure beyond that, but that's the time period we're looking at the moment, is circle widening. So we are looking to hold some events with that in mind. They probably won't be, huge, like 200 people events or something like that. They're more likely to be quite targeted. But it's something that we're looking into. And again, probably this role would be super insightful for figuring out how we can do that in the sort of most strategic way.
Superb. Are there fixed hours for this role, like in total? And what is actually expected? So could it be kind of a bit of a work all the hours that you're available kind of role? What would be your sort of approach to how part-time working would fit with approach to kind of working hours in general?
So we welcome part-time work applications for this role, as well as full-time. I think it's 20 hours minimum. I think that's what it says on the job description. We're really flexible at GFI in terms of when you work those hours, how you work those hours. That fits in with being remote. There's not an expectation that you're available all hours of the day. You have your contracted hours, whatever they are, and you can essentially figure out when you work them. Obviously there's sometimes going to be like specific meetings that you have to be there for, but it's as flexible as possible, and there's not an expectation that you're always on call. We definitely prioritize work-life balance, and well-being is a big thing.
Oh yes, definitely. In terms of the flexibility that we like to have, we have a lot of the team who bend their hours, sometimes quite substantially, to suit particular needs that they might have. So we have parents in the team who might need to bend their hours so that they can take children to school in the morning, people who have health needs as well, that need to just take chunks of time out in the day for different things. So that's completely normal for us, and trust is kind of hard baked into our culture. So it's part of the hiring process in the first place, is to really get to know people from different angles, and that really builds the trust from the very beginning. So you would be absolutely trusted to be managing your own hours. There'll be no one breathing down your neck or looking over your shoulder or asking you to kind of keep very, very rigid logs of the hours that you're working and things like that. That's just not really how we work. So we're much more interested in impacts and the outputs that you'd be delivering. So it's again, hopefully a good perk of working in this kind of organization is that you would have a lot of that autonomy, a lot of trust, and a lot of kind of empowerment to basically plan your time and do the most impactful things.
Yeah. The other thing that it's not exactly the same, but I think it's worth saying because it's something I really appreciate at GFI. We're very thoughtful here about enabling people to work in a productive way for them. And one of the things that I really love is that we try to preserve certain days, so particularly Tuesdays, for deep work time. So on a Tuesday, everyone tries as far as possible to not schedule meetings on that day, so that you can really just focus on like a key bit of work that you've got to do. I find that so helpful. So that's why I just wanted to mention it.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely cool. Okay, similar kind of question, kind of related probably. Is there a lot of face-to-face contact through online meeting opportunities and things like that, considering that it's a fully remote role?
Yeah, again, this is something that I really love and think that GFI does really well. I think during the pandemic, obviously everyone was thrown online, and in a lot of cases that was really hard and people felt really like isolated and stuff. Because obviously organizations generally weren't set up for remote working, but because GFI has always been remote and is set up to do that in the very best way possible, so much thought has gone into things like how we feel connected with the team. To give a couple of examples, the GFI Europe team, we have a weekly water cooler chat, which is specifically a non-work chat, and people will bring different themes to talk about or games to play and things like that, which is lovely. And in the development team, as in the global development team, one of the things that I really love is that at the start of every team meeting, we have a speed share moment where we all share just something from our weekend, or something, share photos and stuff as well. Or sometimes, for example, if someone new has just joined the team, we'll have a special speed share. So the past couple of weeks, we had 2 new people join the US development team. So we have shared what our favorite sandwich is and what our tea or coffee order is. And people got remarkably emotional about these topics, I would say. So that's always a fun insight into learning about your colleagues. So yeah, I always feel super well connected. We've already mentioned the in-person retreats as well, which is another great opportunity.
Nice. That sounds like you really drilled into like the meaningful questions as well about sandwiches. That's
It was truly, I wasn't quite expecting it, but people got very, very into it. Strong opinions, in the best way.
good stuff. Okay, we've only got a couple more questions left. I've put the link in the chat probably for the final time. If you do have any last questions, we'll see if we can squeeze any more in. So a couple of probably quick ones. These might be a bit of kind of recappy ones, but just to be sure, are you looking for any specific profile in terms of education and work experience?
No, the short answer. Just again, look at the person specification. Those are the skills that we're after. You don't need to. We've not asked for a degree or any particular educational level, or any number of years of experience. We're just after someone that can do the job.
One quick question, which I can probably cover if you like. On prospect research tools, you mentioned that you mentioned some of them in the job spec, things like Factiva. What's the budget for other tools such as kind of Europe-wide company databases, things like that? Yeah, good question. We do have budget allocated for 2024, but until this role is in place, we haven't allocated specifically for any of these because you would be part of building what that need would be. So it's one where you'll have a lot of autonomy and you can actually bring these solutions to the table. So budget will be available, and it's kind of up to you. So hopefully for the right person, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And the more money we raise, the more budget is generally available. So
It's funny how it works like that. Awesome. So what is the scope for development in the role? Would there be an opportunity to work in other departments or to progress further up the career ladder?
great question. There's always potential for that, I think, especially because we're in such a big sort of growth mode for our team as a whole. Yeah, it's probably a little bit harder for me to speak to other teams, but I think that's always a possibility. But also stay in my team. But but yeah, as I said earlier, professional development is really important to us at GFI. We would want you to feel motivated and like you could progress in the role. So yeah, I'm not immediately sure what that looks like right now because obviously this is a new role in itself and our team is growing all the time, but that definitely makes me think that there is lots of potential. Have you got anything to add, Alex?
No, that feels good. We definitely will have more roles coming up fairly soon. So we are really excited if people want to apply for those internally and progress in different directions too. So yeah, we'll do everything we can to support growth and development and help find ways to maximize people's potential. Nice. I see people starting to drop out as we're getting close to the end of the hour. So I've just put in the chat here for more information about the role, just the link to the job page. Also, we've got our Europe-hiring email address there as well, if you've got any more specific questions which haven't been answered. So one last question, just to kind of wrap it up, I suppose, Emily. Could you just zoom in on the real core function of this role? So kind of no jargon at all. Just what is this going to be doing? Is it someone just cold calling to get funds for GFI, or is it more than that? Like, what's the kind of the role in a nutshell?
Um, you are not cold calling. You are not being the fundraiser yourself. Um, you're a strategic partner to our fundraisers, and that is the phrase that I keep using when talking about this role, because it's the key way that I'm looking at it. You are equipping our fundraisers in the best possible way to do their job, through maintaining a oh, I was going to go very jargony then. I was going to say maintaining a prospect pipeline. It's a bit jargony. Yeah, through making sure that we've got the donors, or potential donors, and helping them move towards making their gift. Yeah, I'm gonna just start talking jargon if I talk anymore. Hopefully that was clear enough. The strategic partnership with our fundraisers is the core message that I'm trying to get through there.
Yeah, super. And it's going to be a crucial role for us as we grow as well. So an awful lot riding on this from our perspective. So we're extremely excited to see really amazing people coming into the pool for this role. So yeah, if you have any more questions, the email address is in the chat there. Do let us know. The deadline for this role, am I right, Emily? It's next weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the 12th of November. So yeah, end of that Sunday.
Superb. Okay, super. Lovely. If you do have any questions, let us know. Big thank you for joining us today. We'll try and get this recording put onto our website on the job page as soon as we can, just so that if you want to kind of go back and look at any other questions or anything else, you absolutely can. Big thanks. Looking forward to hearing from people, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.